Hello everyone. This week we start a new topic called unemployment, which is one of the major macroeconomic variables and one of the main macroeconomic policy objectives for the government. This week we need to cover the following concepts. So first of all, we'll learn what exactly unemployment is and how to calculate it, what are a few formulas related to unemployment. Then we'll study the duration of unemployment, how exactly unemployment varies by duration, by the length of time during which people remain unemployed. Then we will also cover a few measures of unemployment, how exactly it's calculated in practice. And later we will focus on types or causes of unemployment. The thing is, people can be unemployed for a variety of reasons, which leads to different classification of unemployment into four main types. Then we will proceed to what is called the natural rate of unemployment. We will learn that in a free market economy, unemployment can actually never be equal to zero, because there are some types of unemployment which are natural for the economy, which are natural for the society, which are unavoidable. And there are some bad types of unemployment which we can definitely control. And at the end of the week, we will focus on a few types of government policy which policymakers can implement in order to reduce unemployment rate in a country. So first of all, what exactly unemployment is? Before we proceed to the concept itself, to the concept of unemployment, we will need to learn what labor force is. The thing is, our population is not fully economically active. There are some people who do not participate in labor force, who are not economically active, who do not generate any output, who do not contribute to the production activities of the society. So labor force is a number of individuals who are of working age. In the UK, it will be somewhere between 16 to 64 years old, who are employed or actively looking for a job. So these are, labor force is a number of economically active individuals who belong to working age population, who are prepared to work, who are willing to work, who might be currently employed or unemployed. In other words, labor force, the total size of economically active population, do not include a few categories. So some people are not part of labor force. For example, children under the age of 16. We do not expect children to work. Actually, it's illegal for a child of, for example, 5 or 6 years old to work. We cannot force kids to work. We cannot expect them to produce anything. And that is why we do not count them towards our labor force. Labor force also does not include some other, probably unexpected categories. For example, soldiers, people working or serving in the army. It doesn't also include students in full-time education. So when you work part-time, or when you cannot find a part-time job, you would like to work and earn a little bit of extra income, but you cannot find a job, you won't be classified as unemployed, because strictly speaking, if you are in full-time education, you are not counted towards labor force. You are not part of labor force. It also does not include pensioners. If you are 80 years old, again, you are not economically active. It doesn't include people who are currently in prison, and so on. So labor force is simply a part of population which is economically active, who can work, who is prepared to work, who can be working or not working, but able and willing to work nevertheless. Unemployment is a situation when people of working age who are part of labor force, who satisfy all criteria for economically active population, who are actively looking for a job, are available and willing to start work at the current wage rate, cannot find a job. So strictly speaking, to be counted as being unemployed, you need to satisfy quite a few criteria. So first of all, you need to be of working age. You need to be actively looking for a job. If you sit at home playing computer games and don't have any job, if you are not paid, and you are not actively looking for a job, you are not attending interviews, you are not sending CVs, it means that you are not searching for a job and you won't be classified as unemployed. You must be available to work and willing to work at the current wage rate. For example, if the going wage rate is 8 to 10 pounds per hour, but you would like to work at 50 pounds and there are no jobs available for people with your skills and qualifications at 50 pounds. Again, you won't be unemployed because there are jobs available, but you're not willing to work at current wage rates. So unemployment is a situation when you are part of labor force, you are actively looking for a job, you are prepared to start work, but cannot find any vacancy. So that is why number of unemployed people in our unemployment macroeconomic statistics will not include those people who are not part of labor force, for example, students or prisoners or children or pensioners. It will not include people who are not looking for a job. For example, if you are a mom who is looking after the family after the birth of their children, in this case, again, you are not part of labor force and that is why you are not unemployed. And it will also not include people who have chosen not to work for some other reasons because they want to pursue some other objectives. For example, you take a gap year at the end of your studies and you don't work. You want to travel the world, you want to find what exactly interests you, you want to spend time with your family or with your friends or doing some hobbies, or you take some time off to pursue some other projects. In this case, again, you will not be classified as unemployed. So that is why you will need to memorize a few formulas which will be important for this particular topic and which will be examined in your next assessment. So first formula which you will need to know is labor force formula. Labor force will include people who are employed and unemployed. First. Next, based on this idea, you will be able to calculate so-called participation rate, which is simply a ratio of labor force in total population. So, strictly speaking, it's a proportion of economically active people in total population. And finally, you will be able to calculate employment and unemployment rate. Unemployment rate is simply a percentage of number of unemployed people in total labor force, while employment rate is a number of employed population, employed people in total labor force. Please pay attention. We divide by labor force, not by current population size. Denominators in these formulas are labor force, not population. That's very common mistake, which I frequently see in exams. It's when we calculate unemployment and employment rates in percentage terms, we divide by labor force, not total population. The only time when you divide by total population and when you are trying to calculate the participation rate, which is simply a percentage of economically active population. Percentage of economically active population in total population. Okay, and let's have a look at this example based on labor market statistics for the UK, for our country. So in the UK, our total population is 66 million. 33 million out of those are economically active. In other words, this is our labor force, 33 million out of 66, so it's about half of population. Out of these, 32 million people are working and about 1.5 million are unemployed. Based on this data, we can calculate a few numbers. So first of all, our participation rate. Participation rate measures the percentage of labor force, percentage of economically active population out of total. So in our case, our labor force is 33 million, while our total population is 66 million. In other words, our participation rate will roughly be equal to 50%, 50.8%, just about half of population. Next, we can also calculate our employment and unemployment rate. And to do this, we divide the number of employed or unemployed people by labor force. By labor force. What is the number of employed? It's 32 million. 32 million. What is the number of unemployed? It's 1.44 million. And we divide this by our labor force, not by total population. We divide this by 33 million, not by 66. And as a result, we will be able to calculate employment rate, which is about 95.7%, and unemployment, which is just over 4%. In other words, please make sure that you remember this for your exam. To calculate unemployment rate, we divide number of unemployed by labor force, not by total population. And this is a simple exam type question which you can get in your assessment. So stop the video, please, do your calculations, and continue when you are ready. Ready? So let's have a look what you can get. How do you calculate this? First of all, you'll need to calculate your labor force. Labor force is number of employed plus unemployed people. We have 3 million of unemployed and 24 million of employed. In other words, our total labor force is 27 million. Number of unemployed is 3 million. And to calculate unemployment rate in percentage terms, we have to divide number of unemployed by labor force. So we divide 3 by 27, and in percentage terms, this will be equal to about 11%. In other words, the correct answer will be D. This is a simple question which you might get in exam based on these formulas.